I think it's safe to assume that every creative person either has or will experience some version of an artist rut. The time when you don't feel like yourself, can't create meaningful work or anything that's up to a personal understanding of good. As a recent fashion design graduate, I've had ups and downs in my creative process, but nothing quite as demoralizing as the rut that I found myself in 4 months ago. At that point, I had just fully finalized my degree collection and was now left to my own devices. The collection was in Moscow, I had no uni to prepare for it and was now stuck in Estonia, a country where I hadn't been living in for the past 6 years, but I found a few things in my sad, uncreative state that helped me find inspiration again. I wrote down a list of goals that I would like to achieve in the next 10 years, the next 5, 3, 2 and 1 years, and the upcoming 6 months. I find that operating with a clear goal in mind is the easiest for me, and that having no deadline on the horizon creates an environment where I don't push myself enough. I knew I wanted to create a capsule collection after graduating, and since I had some textiles left over, I wanted to use up all of them. Even though this would mean that I would continue working with the same topic, I felt that clearing my wall mood board of all of the graduate collection imagery would be helpful. This way I would distance myself from the existing language of a collection and would allow new ideas to come to the forefront. Since this is going to be an extension and I would now explore the techniques and processes I wasn't able to fit into the degree collection, having an old range plan would just be stifling. It would force my new collection into the visual code of the original, and unconsciously it would make me lean towards the old look instead of moving forward. However, some of the imagery that was hanging together created a new language and inspired some interesting ideas that I wanted to document since they were no longer going to be on my wall. I put all the relevant images into my old sketchbook, thus finishing it and starting a new one. I just stuck in some of the photos, some of the fabrics and textures that I played around with into my sketchbook that had barely like a couple of pages left. If you want to see the sketchbook in itself, I did a tour on it on my YouTube channel as well, so link is right there. This worked out pretty well because I didn't feel guilty about starting a new sketchbook when the old one wasn't finished because I used it up back to front. I went on to decorating the cover of my new sketchbook that would fit the collection mood a bit better. I used an old sample that would trickle up into my next collection and glued it with PVA glue, folding in the edges and covering them with a piece of paper inside. One of the perks of having a practical skill is being able to create something for yourself, which was exactly what I did. There is a phrase in Russian, "sapožnik bez sabog," which translates as a shoemaker without shoes, which was mostly my reality. I don't often find the time to make something for myself, so I leaned into it and made a dress and a swimsuit for my trip to Italy this summer. It felt rewarding wearing something I made myself, although it also made me appreciate my collection a bit more since making something without a deep research concept felt very flat and uninspiring. It did distract me from the collection though, so I found it helpful nonetheless. Now, the fact that I was able to go to Italy in the first place was a huge blessing, but another thing that helped me find inspiration was visiting museums and looking into the work of other artists and makers. Museums and galleries have become an integral part of my creative process, and being unable to attend exhibitions for over a year due to the pandemic has definitely taken a toll on my workflow. At some point, I started to doubt myself and become overly critical to the point of contemplating a change in the field of work. That was just a lapse of judgment since the inspiration and motivation hit again and I'm happy with my work again, but for a moment I was very down. This incredible experience helped me feel like I was back on the university art trip to Berlin we had on our foundation year, which completely transformed my view of art for the better, and I had a chance to relive those feelings again. I have visited my local museums too, but since I've seen them so many times and they're on the smaller scale, it was a little less impactful than this huge new gallery I had the chance of visiting. Of course, you don't have to travel to visit museums, but a change of scenery, different culture and architecture created such an immersive experience, which I'm extremely grateful for. Next helpful tool was spending time with friends. It was nice to take my foot off the gas pedal and not drown in the waterfall of self-flagellation and lack of perspective, which they definitely help with. Just talking to someone, listening to their life and aspirations is refreshing and allows to see the world through someone else's eyes. Shifting my focus onto a completely different area that I've not explored yet is also a practice that I try to frequently implement in my life. Previously, how I used to typically get out of my small downs during university is I would go to the inductions for workshops my university offered, such as laser cut, photo studio, bookbinding, and etc. They would all come in handy at some point, but they were different enough to bring a new skill and later make me look at my work from a different perspective. These specifically were all art related, so maybe not that unlikely of a shift, but if you are into trying something completely different, it could also be helpful. For example, this time around I explored ceramics and working with sculpture, which is adjacent to my work, but also started learning French, which is very different. And last point is doing research in your field. A season of fashion weeks came right at the end of my RUT, which I'm slowly coming out of. Following the shows, reading articles on fashion adjacent topics, and watching new and old fashion films helped me re-immerse myself into the university environment and feel like I was back in my bubble. I have some separation anxiety from my university because it brought me my group mates whom I could discuss my collection with, bounce ideas off of, have their input, chat about the fashion scene, art history, fashion psychology, and so on. The environment is probably the biggest aspect of my university I miss, which was somewhat brought back by the research deep dives I did during this time. The sources I used most of all are the Vogue Runway app, One Granary, Business of Fashion, Copenhagen Fashion Week, and Google Scholar for articles on fashion. I feel like all of those 8 points encompass pretty well all of the experiences that I had to go through in order to get out of a rut. These are obviously tailored for me, so I'm not sure, maybe you have some different input, and if you do, definitely share it in the comments below in case someone is going through it and needs a little pick-me-up. I would definitely like to see someone else's perspective on this topic. I'm proud to announce that I'm finally out of a rut and I'm slowly moving back to my old work process, so you'll definitely be seeing a lot of process diaries and continuation of collection development because now I have a goal. I'm going to be applying to a fashion competition and you will see the behind the scenes of that competition in case I get through. Thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful for you, and if you are going through, just know we have all been there and you'll definitely get out of it. Good luck.